Let us then return to Psalm 132 as we work our way through the Psalms and as we work our way through the collection of Psalms under the Song of Degrees. And now we've reached Psalm 132. It is probable that this psalm was penned by Solomon to be sung at the dedication of the temple, which he built according to the charge that his father gave him. We cannot be certain. Some commentators maintain it was written by David, and that's obviously possible. But I'm inclined to believe it was written by Solomon himself, and it was written to acknowledge the fact that the Ark of the Covenant was now in Jerusalem, and that Solomon had built a temple, and there was a place in the temple for the Ark of the Covenant. And basically in this psalm here, I would say to you, it's in three sections. Verses 1 to 7. It contains a statement of David's anxious care to build a house for the Lord. And we might summarize that by saying we have here David's zeal to serve the Lord, to have the Ark of the Covenant in Jerusalem, and then to have a house to house the Ark of the Covenant. So verses 1 to 7 really highlight David's zeal for the Lord and for the worship of God, and we might say even for the public worship of God, to make sure that all the ordinances of God were right and that they were being maintained. Verses 8 to 10 really are a prayer. Since the ark has come to the temple, it's a prayer then that God might manifest himself and that there would be blessing at the public means of grace. And then really the third section is from verses 11 to 18. And here we have the psalmist is pleading the divine covenant and its promises. Or as one commentator said, he said the first section is David swearing, David making an oath, David making a vow. But these verses, the verses 11 to 18, is God making a vow. God saying what he will do. The Lord has sworn in truth unto David, verse 11. He will not turn from it. Of the fruit of thy body will I set upon thy throne. And this section that concludes at the end of the psalm is really God saying what he will do. David has said what he wants to do, and the vow that he has taken and the zeal that he has exercised towards serving God. And now we have here God, in some sense, responding to that, and that he is saying that he will be true to the covenant and he will be faithful to the promise that he gave to David. Well, we want to look at the psalm in context. If you want to have one particular verse for the text, it would be verse 10 that we will focus on. Verse 10 of Psalm 132, which reads, For thy servant David's sake, turn not away the face of thine anointed. And here is the second part of the psalm. It's a prayer. The prayer that now that the ark has come into the temple, the prayer is, or part of the prayer is, for thy servant's David's sake, turn not away the face of thine anointed. And the title I want to give to our short meditation tonight is Pleading with God. For this is a prayer where the psalmist, whoever he is, whether he be David or whether it be Solomon or whether it be another psalmist, he is pleading with God. For thy servant David's sake, turn not away the face of thine anointed. Well, as we seek to unpack this psalm in this text. What do we want to say then? Well, first of all, turn not away the face of thine anointed. Here was the sum and the substance of the prayer. And what is the psalmist doing here? He is asking the Lord to remember David's zeal. Now, in the first section here, verses 3 and 4 and 5, they outline some kind of vow that David took. We don't have the record of it in the Old Testament. We're not told about it. But it was a very zealous vow that David took. Surely I will not come into the tabernacle of my house, nor go up into my bed. I will not give sleep to mine eyes, or slumber to mine eyelids, until I find out a place for the Lord, and habitation for the mighty God of Jacob. We don't really know much about this, and one or two commentators have said that it was a kind of rash vow on David's part, because he is basically saying he's not going to sleep or eat or drink until this matter's settled. That's unlikely to be the case. That is unlikely to be the case. The reality is that we're meant to derive from this portion of Scripture that we're meant to see the zeal that David had for God's honor. This is paramount. This must shine through. And when he says, surely I will not come into the tabernacle of my house, some commentators maintain this is David talking about the house that he built for himself. In other words, he wouldn't go to that house and he wouldn't enjoy the provision of that house until the matter of the covenant of the Lord had been settled. And that's a perfectly reasonable vow to take, something that David could indeed undertake. But the whole point, without getting into various explanations, the whole point of this is that we are to realize that David was one who was particularly jealous for the honor of the Lord his God. And we might even sharpen that up a bit more. David was zealous for the public worship of God. This is what fired David up, and this is what motivated David above all things. We know, we've been looking at David in our evening services, and we know that he had this desire to build a temple. He wasn't given permission. Instead, he was told that Solomon, his son, would do it. Nevertheless, David made extensive provision for the temple. And we noticed in one of our recent sermons regarding 2 Samuel, I think it's 2 Samuel 24, we notice there that David, following the numbering of the people, he was able to buy a site for the temple to be built. This is something that fired through David continually. He would not be satisfied until there was a house built for him, and a house that would safely and in some sense give honor and respect to the Ark of the Covenant. For at the moment, the Ark of the Covenant during David's reign was in a tent. But now he wanted to have a suitable edifice, something that would reflect the glory of his great God. And here, friends, we are meant to realize that David had an overburdening zeal for the Lord and for the house of God and for public worship, to make sure that everything was right and fitting and appropriate. Now, of course, we know that in some sense, no building could possibly do justice to the Lord our God. No building whatsoever. But you can get David's point. He wanted a place where the people of God would be able to come together and to converge and to be as the people of God and to publicly acknowledge the greatness and the glory of their God. And this is something that God had stipulated in the law that he gave Moses. And when they came out of the promised land, and when they came out of Egypt, and before they went into the promised land, at the second reading of the law, it says in Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 5, this. This is what Moses said to the people. But unto the place which the Lord your God shall choose out of all your tribes to put his name there, even unto his habitation shall ye seek, and thither thou shalt come. So there, away back, just before the people were going into the promised land, it was revealed to them that God would reveal a place where he was going to put his name and where all the tribes of Israel would come and worship God. And in some sense, David being the king, David being the great king of Israel, the one who had united Israel and Judah together, and who, for over 33 years, he ruled over united Israel, and he was the one who took it upon himself to give him no rest until the house would be built, until the tabernacle would be there, in order that people might worship God aright, as God had laid down in the law. And this section here would remind us that David was one who was zealous to make sure that he could do all that he could to bring this to a reality. He was one who united the people, and he wanted the people to be united in worship, and that they would come to the house of the living God. And the psalmist here is saying, remember David and all his afflictions. Remember him. Remember him, what he did. Remember him, he was the anointed of the Lord. And because he was the anointed of the Lord, he had many afflictions. Many things that troubled him, many things that took his time, many wars to fight, many things, many battles, many scrapes, many scars, many things that distracted him. But this is what motivated David. He wanted everything to be right and fit and proper for the worship of the living God. And as we know, he was the one who actually did bring the Ark of the Covenant back to Jerusalem. And verses 6 and 7 refer to that. Lo, we heard of it at Ephratah. We found it in the fields of the wood. It was found in Kirjath-jearim. And that's what Kirjath-jearim, the name of it, means, fields of the wood. That's where it was found. I believe the ark really had been out of circulation for about 75 years. And it had been 20 years or so at Kirjath-jearim. It was in some sense lost to the people of Israel. But David, who had established himself, he was thinking about the ark and he wanted to find it and to bring it back. And as we know, as we look through 2 Samuel, he went on one occasion and they didn't take the ark back in the way that they should have taken it back. They didn't follow the law of God. The Levites didn't carry it. Instead, it was on a cart. And we know that Uzzah touched the ark as it was about to fall off the cart so that nothing would happen to the ark. But what do we find? God struck him dead because he should not have touched the ark. And David was afraid. And he did not know what to do. But a number of months after that, having consulted the law of God, and there realizing how it should be transported, they went and took it back to Jerusalem with great ceremony and with great excitement and delight And David provided food and wine for all the people of Israel because he was overjoyed to have the Ark of the Covenant, which symbolized the very presence of the living God in Jerusalem. If you like, one step of his great goal and aim was now completed. He had the Ark of the Covenant. And then, of course, he was later to request that he build a temple that was denied unto him. But Solomon built it. And what we read in 2 Chronicles chapter 5 was the dedication of that temple, the newly built temple, with everything in it that should be in it. And what happens? A cloud comes, God comes, and the place is filled with his glory, to such an extent that the priest couldn't carry out the work because the glory of the Lord had filled the temple. Lord, remember David and all his afflictions. And surely what the psalmist is saying here, as this psalm would be repeated year after year as the people went up to the temple, surely what the psalmist is crying out here is, remember that day. Remember the day when the temple was dedicated. Remember that time when the cloud came in amongst the congregation and the priests and they couldn't perform their work. Why could they not perform the work? They couldn't perform the work because the glory of the Lord had come in. And surely what the psalmist was saying, oh, may that day return. May that day come again. May there be great days in the temple again when the place is filled with the glory of the Lord again. Lord, remember David and all his afflictions. For thy servant David's sake, turn not away the face of thine anointed. Well, you can imagine, friends, as we want to bring this to our own minds and our own situation, I hope you can see where I intend to go with this. Here's the psalmist pleading. Here, if it's Solomon who's the writer, here is Solomon not pleading his own rights or his own merits or his own zeal, but he's looking back to his father. And he's reminding God of the zeal of his father. And he's saying, oh, may that day come again. Well, you know, if Solomon can do that, what can we do? We have the Lord Jesus Christ. If Solomon was to look at David and look at his zeal and to look at David's love for the Lord and David's affliction, what are they in comparison to David's greater son, the Lord Jesus Christ? Here's a wonderful thing for us to plead with the living God. Remember Christ. Remember what he has done. Remember his humiliation. Remember his afflictions. Have we not got wonderful ammunition to plead with God and to plead with the Lord? We're not pleading ourselves. We are pleading the Lord Jesus Christ. We are pleading his humiliation. We are pleading his incarnation. He came like us in order to save his people. And does he not receive a reward? Is that not true? He shall see the travail of his soul, the Bible says. Did the Lord Jesus Christ go to Golgotha? Did he sweat great drops of blood at Gethsemane and then go to Golgotha and cry out, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? For nothing? For no reward? God forbid we would say that. That's next to blasphemy. The Lord Jesus Christ went to Calvary and cried out, it is finished. Did he not do all that was necessary to meet all the precepts of God's law? That law that condemns us. Did he not do all of that? Did he not fulfill it perfectly? Did he not pay the penalty? Did he not suffer the pains of hell there as he cried, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Here we are. We're at a prayer meeting. We are to plead, friends, with God. And we are to use this as ammunition and as arguments. We're not pleading the rights and merits of David. We are pleading the rights and the merits of someone greater than David. David's greater son, the Lord Jesus Christ, who lived a perfect life. Here is wonderful encouragement to plead with God. What are we to plead with God for then? If we do believe that the psalmist was in some sense pleading for better days, or days like the time when God filled the temple with His glory, can we not do something similar? Or can we not even take a leaf out of David's book? Can we not plead for some of the zeal that David had? Verse 5, what does it say? Here's what David said, until I find out a place for the Lord, and habitation for the mighty God of Jacob. Can we not apply that principle, that zeal to the unbeliever? Oh, this is a prayer meeting, you say. Yes, it's a prayer meeting. But can this not be applied to the unbeliever, that he might or she might stir him or herself up to seek the Lord? Here was David. He was going to give himself no rest until he found a place for the ark of the Lord. Surely the unbeliever should be able to cry out to the Lord, oh, that the Lord Jesus Christ might find a place in my heart. That the Lord Jesus Christ might find a place within me. That He might come and reside within me. That He might find a place in my life. Until I find out a place for the Lord. David was going to give himself no rest, no sleep, none of the human comforts of the day. David was single-minded. He was determined. This was number one priority for him, to find a house for the Lord and to find a place for the Ark of the Covenant. He was one who was going to worship God. Oh, let's take a leaf out of his book then. Oh, unbeliever, let us envy his zeal. Let us cry out to the Lord that we might have this zeal within us. What about the believer? Well, surely you can cry unto the Lord too. Oh, that we might have some of the zeal that David had. You know, the brethren prayed tonight about being lukewarm. We are lukewarm. Is that not true? Wherever you go in Christendom today, it's lukewarmness. That's what we find. It's lukewarmness in the pulpit. It's lukewarmness in the pew. And that's why the presence of God is not with us. That's why. We have knowledge. We have information. We have Bibles, commentaries, libraries full. Internet is full of good material. Yes, it's full of rubbish also, but it's also full of good material. Material that we cannot possibly look at. There's so much of it. But what are we lacking? We're lacking the presence of God. That's what we're lacking. And David was going to give himself no rest until he had that presence. Believer, minister, elders, office bearers, let us take a leaf out of David's book. Let us plead with God until we have the presence of the living God. You know, it's a sad thing. But after the temple was built, and if you like, the public means of grace were in order. The tabernacle had its rightful place. The priests were there, clothed in all their garments. The high priest performed what he had to do. The Levites were there helping. The singers were there. The musical instruments were there. Everything was there. And possibly at the time when Solomon dedicated the temple, that may in some sense be the high point of the religious life of Israel. But what happened when they had the edifice, when they had all the externals? What happened? The spiritual life declined. I think it would be fair to say that there was no one like David. Oh yes, we have had prophets who were good, yes, certainly. There was no king like David. None of them were like him. Some were better than others, of course. Hezekiah was good. Josiah was good. There was others good, certainly. But none reached the standard or the level, I would believe, of David. I mean, all the kings that ruled in Israel, the divided Israel, none of them were good. Many of the kings of Judah were good, yes, certainly. But as far as personal devotion and zeal, David probably excelled them all. Yet, all the externals, everything was in order. But David's heart was way above all others. And maybe that's something that we need to bear in mind. We might have the worship. Well, we don't have the public worship of God at the moment. Yes, we're in the building, that's true, but this is a broadcast service. This is not public worship. But we've had public worship some time ago. We hope to have it in the not too distant future, we hope. But you can have all the externals. You can have all of these things right. But where is the zeal that David had? Where is it? We should plead for it. Plead for it. And that we might have the presence of the living God. How do we know that we've got the presence of the living God? Well, there are two things that would draw our attention to that, I would believe. Verse 9, let thy priests be clothed with righteousness, and let thy saints shout for joy. Now, whether that righteousness that's ascribed to the priests be their own personal righteousness in the sense that they are true-hearted believers is difficult to say. I would be inclined to believe that the priests here should be ones who are true, genuine believers, and that in that sense that they are clothed in the righteousness that God provides. But they're also ones who live righteous lives. They have a practical righteousness. And of course, if one is a true-hearted, genuine believer, that will evidence itself in living a practical, righteous life. He that is righteous does righteousness. So here is one indicator when the presence of God is among us, is when the priests are what they should be. And we would modernize it and say, ministers should be what they should be. They should be genuine Christians, and that they should show their lives, or at least show by their lives, that they have a lively faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. Verse 16 will give us another indication of when the presence of the Lord is among us. I will also clothe our priests with salvation, and our saints shall shout aloud for joy. Again, here is a reference to those who serve in the temple, the priests, with salvation. Now, of course, no priest can give salvation. We're not suggesting that for one moment, or no minister can give salvation. But when the presence of the Lord is with the ministry, with those who serve in the tabernacle or who serve in the church, you will find that salvation will follow. You will find that those who sit under his ministry will be ones who will know the Lord Jesus Christ in a saving manner. I will also clothe her priests with salvation. That's what was going to happen in the temple. When the priests who were righteous themselves, who lived righteous lives, and when they proclaimed the word and did all that was required, what would follow? Salvation in all its fullness would follow to those who were under his ministry or their ministry. And surely this is what we long for in our own day. And this is what we should be pleading with God for. That the pulpits would be full of men who love the Lord Jesus Christ. Men who have experience of knowing what it is to have their sins forgiven. And as a result, who walk with the Lord Jesus Christ and who seek to proclaim the gospel so that people are indeed saved. When was the last time we had a conversion? Let's not look at any other congregation. When's the last time someone professed faith in the Lord Jesus Christ in Partick? Surely this is something to plead with God for. Jesus Christ died to save sinners. I have come that they might have life. They that be whole need not the physician, but they that are sick. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. Ask ourselves, are there no sinners in our congregation? Are there no sinners who need to be saved? Are there no sinners who are hanging or dangling over the fires of hell tonight? Is this the way it is with us in Partick? Are we all righteous? Surely not. Surely something's wrong. What is it? The presence of God is not among us. He's not working among us. It's time, therefore, to plead with God. It's time, therefore, to remind him, and we do this reverently and we do it with respect, to remind him of the Lord Jesus Christ and his sufferings. When was the last time we ever pleaded with God? It's interesting here too that Solomon looks to someone else. He looks to David. As we look to Jesus Christ. But we can also look to others who have gone before us. To look at the example of others who stood in their day and in their generation for the Lord their God, who had some kind of zeal like David for the Lord's cause. We think of the martyrs. We think of our forefathers who had to fight for the liberty that we enjoy. Is that not an argument to use with God also? Lord, men, women, children died. They were drowned. They were beheaded. They were set on fire for the gospel. Will you not remember them? Will you not remember their sacrifice? We are here in freedom tonight because men and women and boys and girls fought for that freedom. Lord, remember Christ. Remember His people. Remember the great cost. Remember that we have freedom because men gave up their freedom. My time's up. For my servant David's sake, turn not away the face of thine anointed dear. Let's plead with God then, that He would send the blessing, that He would come, that we would see conversions, that we ourselves would be converted, and more converted, pleading with God. Amen. And may the Lord bless His word to us. Let us pray together.